How's it going, everybody? So we're back on this safari project. With the suspension being mostly wrapped up on this thing now, we're actually just waiting on a few more parts, some bushings to flip the tie rods in the front, kind of a bump steer kit type of deal. So while we're waiting on that, it's time to get this thing running. Well, start to. As you've seen, the engine is out of the car and it's kind of been apart in pieces. When I got it, it was sitting apart in the guy's shed for who knows how long, so I want to just kind of strip it down and inspect everything. We'll put some new bearings in it, and I got all new gaskets for everything, so we'll reseal the whole motor, put new bearings in it, just make sure everything looks okay, everything measures up pretty good. Then we'll put it back together and put it back in the car. So I got the motor out. I borrowed an engine stand, so we'll get this thing mounted on the engine stand and start taking it apart. I have the engine stand that I have, or that I'm borrowing, needs some pretty long bolts, and the bolts that are needed to thread into where the bell housing mounts on that engine, they are 12 millimeter by 1.5 pitch. So they're 12 millimeter fine thread. Kind of the medium fine, I guess normal 12 millimeters, 12 by 1.75. They also make it 12 by 1.25. These are 12 by 1.5 is what threads into the back of that. And unfortunately, I only have 3. But from looking around online, the bolts that hold the subframe into the car are the same thread, and they should be long enough to fit through my engine stand to go into the block of the engine. So what we'll do is I'm actually going to take one of the bolts out of the subframe right now and see if that's correct, because I would rather have 4 bolts holding the engine up instead of just 3. A little extra is pretty good. So let's get after it. We'll take bolts out of the subframe and see if it's the same, see if we can use it. All right. So I pulled a subframe bolt out, and just comparing it, this short bolt right here, this is as short as I can go. This one looks a little bit too short, so let's just put it in the stand. No! But while I was under there, I was looking around for other bolts that could be stolen. A control arm bolt, one of the front mounts for the control arm, looks like a 12 millimeter, and it is a little bit longer than this one, so I think I can use that. So I'm gonna take one of those out real quick and give that a try. Now with this engine up on the stand, what I'm going to start doing is I'll take everything on the front of it off, because all this is going to get replaced. I'll get new rollers on everything and new water pump. I might keep the thermostat, I don't know, we'll see if it's still good. I'll check it. Tear the oil filter off, the oil cooler housing, we'll get this all taken apart. Probably take off the balance shaft covers, get all these, little brackets and stuff off, and then I'll flip it over and pull the oil pan off and take a look at the bottom end. This engine really isn't in too bad a shape. It's got a little wear. There's one little score that I can catch my finger on in this cylinder. But the other side, they look pretty decent. I did spin it over before and got a good look at them. I just wiped them off now, and this one score in cylinder 4 here is really all there is. I think this is just something, this little line right there. I think that's just something stuck to the cylinder because I don't know what that is. Just some dirt or something. But we'll take it all apart. We'll see what it looks like. Pull the pistons out. Pull the crank and the connecting rods and all that stuff, and we'll see what it looks like. So we'll start tearing this thing down. So I just wanted to stop and kind of show how I had to hold this thing to get the crank bolt loose. It totally slipped my mind. I was like, oh yeah, I got the flywheel lock tool. Just put it in the starter hole and it'll be good to go. But I totally spaced that because it's on the stand. There's no bell housing on it for me to use the starter lock tool. So what I ended up doing is I put one of the clutch bolts in with a pry bar against the stand and kind of just wedged that in there. And then, as you probably saw in the video, I kept having problems with the whole thing rotating. So I took this piece of pipe that I actually machined this piece. This is bolts on the end of a N51 BMW engine from when I did one of those, and used that, jammed that in there against the stand, and was able to hold this thing to loosen the crank bolt with the breaker bar. So that was a little bit of a fiasco. And as you could see in the time-lapse video just before this, I actually smashed the heck out of my thumb using just a little pry bar on the flywheel to try to hold it. So this is another day, and my thumb's a little swollen, but it's doing a little bit better. So we're all good. But that's loose now, so I can get these gears and pulleys off. Take this front cover off, and then all the front will be taken off once I get the water pump off. So let's get back into it. How we doing there? So it's another day. I've got this engine pretty much broken down, and I got some good news about the engine. It's looking really, really good. It was actually in pretty decent shape once I got it apart. I still need to take the girdle off and look at the main bearings and get those replaced when I get it all cleaned up and start putting it back together. But now, some bad news about the motor. It was all going really well. It was looking really good, and until I dropped one of the pistons. That's right. As I was pulling the piston out of the bore, it just popped out a little bit quicker than I thought and rolled off the tips of my fingers and hit the engine stand. And on the way down, it came in contact with the engine stand, and I chipped the skirt of it. It's supposed to look like that. but now it looks like that. So I got really excited because I was like, well, I know I have a set of spare pistons that came with this car that I presumed were out of the original motor, because this one originally had a timing belt break and smashed all the valves, and they sourced this other motor, which this motor is a like 85 to 86 M44-7 engine is the serial code on this. So I was like, oh, I got these other pistons. I'm looking for tolerance group 1. I go out to the shed, scrape the stuff off, and I'm like, oh yeah, tolerance group 1 piston. It's like not in bad shape. So I start looking at it a little bit more, and let me flip you around here. So there is a difference between the early pistons. This is out of the 83. I'm assuming, I don't know because I don't have the block that these came out of. I really don't know what they're from. I'm assuming they're the original pistons from the car, but this is the piston that I dropped. There's a little chunk that broke off of it. But you can see the castings are very different. So I really don't want to mix and match pieces too much inside the engine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to source another late piston tolerance group 1 and see if I can find another one of them. They seem to be out there. The rest of the pistons look pretty good, just slight bit of wear, but not, nothing out of the ordinary. The bearings look decent. There's just some oil in there right now. Look decent. The rest of it looked pretty good. The crank still is in, nice shape, no scoring or anything, so we should be pretty good. The other thing that came is these little bushings right here. Which, let me see if I can open up. So these are, I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but these are, you kind of can. These are the tapered bushings for the bump steer kit. I ordered these off of eBay. They are supposed to be for like a Series 1 Jetta Golf, stuff like that. And those had the same tie rod ends as a 944. Another thing that I also found is they make a similar thing, one of these little bushings that goes in your spindle for I believe it's a Series 2 Volkswagen Beetle. And there was a guy I was talking to a little bit about this, who watches these videos as well. His name's Pat. He found the Series 2 Volkswagen Beetle bump steer kits work on the 944 as well, and they are a little bit easier to find, readily available here in the US. So that's another good thing to know for anyone else that's looking to do this. Same thing, you got to drill out the old taper in the spindle and then press the new bushing in. So we'll be going through that on this car, and yeah, what I'll probably do here tonight is just pop one of the tie rods out and make sure that the taper is the same on this new bushing as what the tie rod is. And then I'll probably take the girdle off this engine and just look at the main bearings and stuff like that. My new main bearings came in today, which is really nice. So hopefully this weekend I'll be able to start putting this engine back together, minus that cylinder number 3 piston. That was a good whoops on my part, so that's all right. We'll find another one and it'll be all good to go. So, all right. So with the crank out of this engine, we can take a look at the main bearings, and luckily they all looked pretty decent. A little bit of wear on that one right there, but nothing crazy. This one's all right. Surprisingly, the first main bearing actually had a fair amount of wear to it, which, to be honest, I wasn't expecting after seeing the first or the other three bearings come out. You can actually see it's kind of almost worn through the outer layer right there, but luckily in the crank there's nothing that I can catch my finger on, so we'll be plenty fine there. The rest of it looks pretty good. We'll have to take the flywheel off at some point to do the rear main seal, but yeah, we're looking pretty good. So I guess now's the time to just start cleaning everything up. Yeah, the rest of the cylinder bores look really nice. So yeah, we'll just be cleaning it all up and starting to put it back together. So we got one of the tie rod ends just popped right off here because I was very curious to see if this flip bushing would be the correct taper, and it fits on there really good. So I think we're going to be fine with this. And amazingly, these tie rods are actually in pretty decent shape. They're not loose, and I was able to squeeze some grease out of them, and the grease still actually looks pretty fresh. So I don't know if these were replaced. You can still kind of see the paint on them pretty good. So I don't know if these were replaced at one point or what, but they're still good, which is nice. And the inner tie rods are pretty tight as well. So what I'm going to end up doing with this is I'll actually, because this is the one to show you on, there's this in the center of the spindle right here, which is for the speedometer cable. So that actually makes this spindle weaker. So I'm gonna end up replacing this spindle with the one off of my gray car, my 85, because that's a solid one, so it'll be stronger. So I'll drill this out for the bushing, which will go right like that, so that this can get flipped and go right on top of there. And you can see the angle of the tie rod will be much better, especially once it's down on the ground. It'll be just about level, which is what we want. So these little guys, they'll work. We'll be able to drill it, press it right in there. We'll still have plenty of meat on that, so that'll be good. So at this point, I'm gonna wrap this video up. The next video that I'll probably put out will probably be starting to reassemble this engine that we got. It'll either be that or doing the flip bushings for the bump steer kit. I'm not sure exactly which one it'll be. I'm gonna try to do the motor this coming weekend, or at least do a fair bit of work on it, because I want to keep this going. I know I've slacked a little bit on it. Haven't been putting videos out as frequent as I'd like, but trying to get back into it and keep it going for you guys. So hope you enjoy. Yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.